Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of Sipto. I brought my cat Tofu. I was telling you about him last time, but here he is. He does not like being held. He's a little kitty. You're a cute kitty though. Okay, you're going down. I know. Welcome to the episode where we're going to talk about the history of wine and the history of Bitcoin. I'm going to pontificate on some pontificus. Hopefully I'm not going to be pontificating to you too much though, because that means that I'm being annoying and pompous. So while I open this up, just a little quickie. Again, this is not financial advice. You need to do your own research if you're thinking about investing in any cryptocurrencies or any investing at all. Also, not drinking advice, unless you want to drink a 6-liter bottle of Opus One. I'm just kidding. You should always do your own research, and it's also very important to never invest more than you can afford to lose. And if you're going into the cryptocurrency market, definitely not more than you can afford to lose. Cheers, everybody, to episode number 3, Crypto Sipto. I'm so glad you're here with me. It's the history of wine. It all started with wild grapevines, going back so far that there really isn't a recorded date of a discovery of wine. Thousands and thousands of years ago, somebody decided one day to sit on some grapes. Not really sit on them, but hold them in something. Grape juice became intoxicating, and somebody drank it, and they're like, wow, I like the effects of this. And then we made them. Oh, my light just went out. That's weird. Tofu, what are you doing up there, kitty? Grapevines make fruit to attract birds and other animals, so that they go and they eat the grapes, and then they take the grapes, the seeds with them in their bodies, and then when they go and release those by natural means, the seeds can spread out to more areas of the forest or the mountains or wherever they are. We're not going to get too pontificating on this topic. It was somewhere in the 6000 BCE time, like 8,000 years ago. There's the first archaeological evidence of wine actually being made. There's a cave in 4100 BCE that they found in Armenia, where there's actually like a wine press, and there's like the oldest known shoe ever found, and all these tools that are used for winemaking. And then also they found some resins and seeds, remnants of grapes, that give them the idea that yes, wine was actually produced here. That's right around Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat is where Noah planted the vines in the Bible, and then the story goes that he got drunk on wine and then exposed himself to his sons. That's kind of strange. But wine shows up in the Bible in a couple different places, many different places, as a matter of fact. The moment that Jesus Christ turned water into wine, he was at a wedding and they ran out of wine. Jesus Christ performed his first miracle, and he had buckets of water that when they poured the water out of the buckets, it was wine. Georgia, in the country, not the state, Georgia is the oldest known, that's what gets the most credit for wine history, as far as where it the birthplace of wine. But there's also wine that was found 2,000 years before that, or evidence in China, which is also another fascinating thing for me, because it's you wouldn't think that China would have much to do with wine, although it's a big country, a lot of people, so that's probably makes sense, right? The funnier part is that the wine from back then tastes nothing like it does today. I brought some books around, and one of my favorites here is The History of Wine. The History of Wine in 100 Bottles by Oz Clarke. He's a wine critic from England, and one of his first stories in this book is about taking a trip, and he tries ancient wine, and he said it's the furthest that you would ever expect from what we drink today, but it's the closest that you get to actually drinking wine that's 8,000 years old. And I would love to do that one of these days. The imagery and the stories that are told through wine, it's not a surprise, because wine makes you want to tell stories and makes you want to be artistic, but it's found all over ancient texts, tools, and art. Historians have found a geographic history of wine through these items, through the tools, through the art, and through texts. There are also images of wine in tombs in Egypt, along with vessels that would hold the wine for the dearly departed that is in the tomb. God, I love this wine. Wine was a very important part of sophisticated civilizations. Wine is considered to be a sophisticated beverage, although it really shouldn't be. Wine should just be fun and something to be enjoyed. With a couple friends, you open up a bottle of wine and then the conversation goes in places that you don't even expect it to. You might end up striking up a conversation with a complete stranger over a glass of wine in a bar or at a restaurant or something like that. And then all the formalities go away. It's like, especially if you enjoy the same types of wine, you have a conversation and all of the like, what do you do for a living? And you know, what's your name? All this other stuff. That all goes away. You just become friends over a bottle of wine. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me personally. There's heavy links between religion and wine. There's also Greek gods that are named after wine. There's Bacchus, and then there's also Dionysus. It's fascinating how deep the rabbit hole goes with wine history. It's the strongest alcoholic beverage up until about the 12th century. That's part of the reason that it's also had a religious connection, is because it actually puts you into an altered state and you start thinking about things a little bit differently. I'm starting to think about things a little bit differently. I really like this wine. Let's get into some fun stuff. Fun stuff about wine, about history, and more current history of wine, is that the first plantings of Old World wine, and I'll get into Old World versus New World when we get into the pairings on cryptos and wines, is that the Old World wine was planted in the 1800s in Los Angeles. Yes, by Spaniards that came up through Mexico. They were mostly for Sacramento wines. They were planting for the missions. And then those plantings, when the gold rush hit in the 1840s, those clippings from Los Angeles were the ones that went up to Napa and Sonoma. I find it incredibly fascinating that the gold rush has a lot to do with the California wine industry, because the Europeans that were coming over for gold, you know, they made this trek all across the United States and got here to take, who knows, probably 2 months to get over here. And then they just made that trek and they don't come up, they don't strike it rich, they don't find any gold. Well, they do the next best thing. They plant grapevines because they're European and they like old world style wine. Those are some of the people that actually started the wine industry way back when, before the wine industry was reset by Prohibition. That was it, you know? And then the Prohibition comes along, right? Prohibition's an interesting one too, because aside from a few of the Sacramento plantings, Sacramento vineyards, everything else got ripped up because it was now illegal to make wine. And you could order wine grapes online. Yeah, in the 1930s, you could order grapevines or grapes online. Just go on the internet and type in www. During Prohibition, you could order wine and grapes to make wine at home, but they had to be hardy varietals, right? So it was like Zinfandel and I'm trying to remember a couple of the other, there's some hardy varietals that were shipped. When Prohibition ended, they tried to reintroduce old world dry European wine, and everybody's like, no, I've been drinking soda pop for the last 13 years. Now I want something sweet, and I've been drinking the homemade wine, which is Zinfandel and sweet, and now, it basically really kind of disrupted the wine industry. Going back to some of the history stuff, the Romans spread wine through Europe. They're known for planting in Burgundy, which is the epicenter of Pinot Noir in France, right? And also in Bordeaux. Bordeaux and Burgundy, Romans started those vineyards, and then those have just continued on till today. So I've got some other books. Aside from the history of wine in 100 bottles, there's also this Wine and War book. Wine and War is basically World War II, and how Hitler kind of had a vendetta against France, and he wanted to take all of their art and their wine out of the mix. And this book starts off with a fascinating story about the Eagle's Nest, where they blew open the door and they found all of this wine there, and it starts there and then goes into all of the stuff that they had to deal with while the Germans were invading France. They were also going into all the chateau. They were taking over the chateau, and they were either destroying the wine or drinking the wine or taking it back to the Eagle's Nest. I have the history of the world in 6 glasses. This is another one that's very fun. This starts off with beer and then moves into wine and then goes into spirits and then it goes coffee, tea, and soda pop. So you get a really fun kind of the way that each one of those beverages changed the world. And then one of the reasons that I discovered that the first plantings were in Los Angeles is because of this fun little gem, Tangled Vines. Tangled Vines tells a story about a warehouse fire up in Sausalito where this guy nicknamed Sausalito Joe he was trying to cover up some tracks, so he lit a match in the cellar and burned $250 million worth of wine, and they had such a hard time putting it out because this warehouse was actually a Navy bunker where they stored missiles, and so it was like basically just a big concrete box that was subterranean, and the firefighters couldn't cut it open. So one of the as the story goes, one of the things that helped put that fire out was when all of those cases came tumbling down, and the wine actually helped put the fire out. The reason that this book was written is because the author's great-great-grandfather was a winemaker in Rancho Cucamonga in Los Angeles, just outside of Los Angeles, that had 1875 vintage wine that was award-winning, and it was in that cellar. When she started actually doing the research to figure out what happened to her great-great-grandfather's wine and how the cellar burned, she basically started going down a rabbit hole. I'm going to be doing a little bit more history and talking about history of wine as we go through these wine and cryptocurrency pairings, but for now, we're going to get into the history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Tofu, what are you doing up there, kitty? Now we're going to talk a little cryptocurrency history. Cryptocurrency isn't as old as Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created and brought to the public in 2009. But in 1983, David Chaum created this thing called DigiCash that was basically built on smart contracts. And what a smart contract is the ability, basically a computer. This is going to get very techie. Where's my my helmet? It's going to get techie in here for a minute. Okay, so blockchain and smart contracts and all of this stuff. No, this is pontificating. I'm being annoying again. Let's pour some more wine. I apologize, everybody. So cheers one more time. Can I drink this one? Yes. So don't worry, I won't be wearing this very long. Actually, I'm gonna take it off now because I just, the wife. Hi, honey, I love you. So, DigiCash. DigiCash comes out and it's built under a smart contract. And in simplest terms, smart contracts are basically a situation where you don't need an intermediary. You don't need a middleman to verify any kind of a transaction of assets. So if you want to exchange property or money or stocks or anything like that, it just goes through a computer. So that starts the conversation of decentralization versus centralization. And that's another foundation of cryptocurrencies, is a decentralized form of money. Remember from the history of money that it all started with bartering before there was any type of currency, and then it moved into gold, and then we went into metal coins, and then from metal coins we jumped into paper money, and then from paper money we were catapulted into the credit cards, into plastic money, and the dreaded credit industry that still haunts us today with all of those wonderful interest rates. And then it moved into electronic money, and then we're now evolving into cryptocurrency. It's a slow evolution, but it's happening as we speak right now, right? Right now, what's the current value of Bitcoin? I'm going to look really quick. Bitcoin right now at this moment is trading at 33.5739. That'll be important in a second. 1983, David Chaum, he published some things while he was at Berkeley talking about DigiCash, way ahead of his time, and the public didn't pay any attention to it. It just kind of went off by the wayside. In 1998, PayPal comes along, and PayPal was actually started by Elon Musk. I did not know that one until I started doing this research. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and a couple other people launched PayPal as a electronic payment system that you could be able to transact online without having to send paper currencies or paper transactions. So going back to technology and probably having to put this back on for a second, the blockchain. How am I going to describe blockchain simply? I've heard from so many people that the moment that they understand blockchain technology, cryptocurrency just makes so much more sense. So if you imagine like a chain link, right? You've got this link of chains that in between each of the links, there's a box. It starts with that first box, and I'm going to wrap a few things into this. The Bitcoin blockchain started with the Genesis block, which is the very first block ever written. It was it was basically created in 2009, published, and that actually has a hidden message in it that says something like, January 3rd, 2009, the chancellor is on the brink of the second bailout for banks, something to that extent. Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous creator of Bitcoin, put that in there as a reminder that the whole reason that cryptocurrencies are even that they were created is because we need some protection from the banks. You know, the banks failed us in 2008. This was one person or potentially a group's answer to that failure. Going back to the Bitcoin, to the blockchain. The blockchain has all these blocks on it, and each one of them is in each of the chains. So you've got this first block here, and then a new block is created for block number 2 that's connected to the chain, right? And they're locked. The moment that the second chain is the second block, the moment that the second block is made, it gets locked, right? And the first block is also locked. Block number 3 gets created. Block number 3 is completed, and then it gets locked. But where it gets to be fun is that the block number 3 has the information from block number 1 and block number 2 in it, and then it just goes on and on and on. The things that are making these blocks, they're called miners. The miners are basically computers that are solving complicated, complex mathematical equations to create the blocks. And right now it takes about 10 minutes to create another block of Bitcoin, which is one of the issues that the crypto sphere has with Bitcoin, is that it's slow. And that's one of the reasons that we have all these other cryptocurrencies running around, is because they're there to kind of solve the problems that Bitcoin has with speed and efficiency and the size. There have been these ways that have kind of made it go a little bit faster and less information, and I'll get into that a little bit more too. It's other stuff called like hashing, cutting down on the amount of information that needs to go in. But each time that another block is made, it basically just strings out. And there's also copies of this blockchain on anyone's computer that wants to mine. If somebody wanted to go in and manipulate any of those blocks, they would have to manipulate all of the blocks in order to fraud or commit any kind of fraud, or hackers going in and wanting to hack the system. You can't hack the system if you have to be able to get through all of these computers. Cryptocurrency is decentralized. Nobody is in control of it, for better or for worse. The bad side to that is that if somehow you get scammed or you lose your money, you can't call a bank, you can't call anybody and say, hey, I lost my money. It's kind of like, TSOL, sorry, your money's gone. In a centralized situation, if there's fraud or if there's anything else, there's somebody that basically could potentially have to pay. You could sue, you could go after that money, right? But not in crypto. That's why you also have to be really knowledgeable about how the space works with the wallets, how to move money around. It's way better, in my opinion, to have this type of being your own bank technology running around than having your money in a bank, because at the end of the day, the bank kind of owns your money. It's the same thing with gold. There's 2 ways to own gold. You can actually own the physical gold, little pieces of gold, and have it in a safe, or you can have ownership of gold on paper. But if you have gold on paper, you don't really own the gold, right? You have to actually have these pieces of gold in your physical possession in order to really own gold. Going back, that Bitcoin 2008, actually on Halloween 2008, the white paper is released, and the white paper is basically just like an instruction manual, a detail of what Bitcoin is supposed to do. And it has all the blockchain information in it. And as a matter of fact, all of the cryptocurrencies out there, they have a white paper that's attached to them. And I highly recommend, before you invest in any of the cryptocurrencies, that you would read the white paper. And it's a little techno jargon, but it really helps kind of understand what technology they're going after with that certain cryptocurrency. We're going back that Halloween 2008, white papers released. Then in January 3rd, 2009 is when the first Genesis block was created and published for Bitcoin. Then we have a really fun date, May 22nd, 2010. It's called Bitcoin Pizza Day. And on that day, a Bitcoin programmer put out a request that he wanted to buy $25 worth of Papa John's pizzas. He actually got it, and they sent him over $25 in Papa John's pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. So I looked it up, and while I was writing this, in today's value, 10,000 Bitcoin is $33,953,200. So that's a $33 million pizza that's running around. Almost 34 million, as a matter of fact. This history of wine and the history of Bitcoin is here to get us prepared. The next episode is going to be episode number 1 of the pairing, but episode number 4 for all of you OGs that have been here since the beginning, about a month ago when I started this. And I'm going to be pairing Bitcoin with that Chateau Cantenac Brown that has been calling my name over there in that refrigerator ever since. I cannot wait to get my mouth around the glass that is going to hold that third growth Bordeaux. Am I pontificating? I also want to announce that I'm going to be starting a contest, starting right now. It's going to go on for a certain period of time. I'll have an end date for you soon. But the way this contest is going to work, I'm going to pick one of you out there in YouTube land to come and be with me when I open up these bottles of wine, because I don't want to sit here and drink an entire bottle of wine all by myself. I'd much rather share it with you. But the contest rules, here's what it is. You have to like the videos. You have to subscribe to the channel. Also comment on these videos. Please ask me questions. Please help me learn more about these fun subjects, wine and cryptocurrency. At a certain time, and I'll give you an end date. I haven't come up with how long I want to run the contest for, but it won't be for too long. Maybe like 2 months, But for the next 2 months, I'll tell you what. My birthday is April 9th. So on April 9th, I'm going to plan on doing a video with one of you. So we have until April 1st. Let's call it April 1st so we can choose. We got about a week and a half to get it all together and make sure that you can make it over here and be in the video. You're going to have to provide your own transportation and your own Uber home. Definitely, if you're going to come and enjoy a bottle of wine, I recommend you taking an Uber to get here. And it's going to be so much fun because you can ask me questions in person. We can play some Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I could sing you a song. I could do something. I don't know what. I would love it if you get engaged. This is really just my ploy to get you to comment on my videos, and I guess that's what is that? Is that my ego speaking? I just want you to like me. Please like me. No, I don't really care too much if you like me or not, because really what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to get to that winery. I want to save dogs and cats, and eventually it's going to happen. I've come up with how much money I need by the time I'm 50 that I can secure $30 million so that I can go out and go winery shopping. That's about it. Now I gotta sit down and edit the crap out of this video because there's a lot of it. I just hope that you enjoyed this episode of Crypto Sipto, and stay tuned for more. I'll be launching the next episode, which is gonna be Bitcoin and Bordeaux paired together. So tell all your friends, please help me spread the word. I really appreciate it. And that'll get you involved in the contest, whether you like it or not. Contest rules and regulations, again, you got to take Uber to get over here. Probably, you just got to find your own way over here. You don't really have to take Uber, but find your own way over here and be okay with the fact that you're going to be on YouTube, and like the channel or subscribe to the channel, like the video, and make some comments. All right. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me. Cheers, everybody, and we'll see you then.